Hey everybody, this is Rydo, and today we're looking at Ni no Kuni, Wrath of the White Witch Remastered. Man, that turned into a tongue twister real fast. Ni no Kuni, uh, literally meaning me the king in Japanese, if I can translate it correctly. Uh, this is a Japanese role-playing game, much in the same vein as something like the Dragon Quest series, that is a much longer series, where there have only been 2 games in the Ni no Kuni series. I've wanted to get into JRPGs for a long time now, but the problem is it's a big commitment, certainly as far as gameplay time. Like, this is a 60-hour game, probably, if you just run through it, to 120 hours if you really try to max things out, and those numbers are pretty low for a Japanese RPG. There's plenty of ones out there where it's 2, 3, 600 hours potentially. Now, this game is the remastered version of it, which they came out with a remastered version fairly quickly. It was kind of, I believe, a generational leap from the PlayStation 3 to the PlayStation 4, I believe. If not the PlayStation 4 to the PlayStation 5. But playing this on Steam, it is noticeably missing some features. I can say, by default, the graphic settings are mostly right. VSync, I'm just going to leave on, but normally I would tend to turn it off, but I think I'm more and more leaning towards just trying to leave settings wherever the game thinks they should be, based on if it gets certain things right. Like, if it knows my monitor, or my first monitor, is 1080p 60 hertz, then, and gets to that, that's fine. If it knows that my graphics card is strong enough to get FXAA, which is really the only options anyways, that's fine. If it goes to the maximum 16x for anisotropic filtering, and if shadow quality is high by default, that's fine. But that's really not a lot of options. What's noticeably missing here is a subtitles option. And it's not just that it's not in the gameplay menu, it is non-existent. And for a game that is Japanese and going to appeal to the Japanese anime fandom, because the animation style here is very much a anime style known mostly done by Studio Ghibli, who literally worked on this game, at least the first one in the series, to create more of the Studio Ghibli kid-friendly Disney of Japan. That's what they call Ghibli, the animators. He's the Walt Disney of Japan. Like, you would expect that the Japanophile audience would prefer to have the option to go to Japanese audio and then have subtitles. But to do that, you would effectively have to set the audio inside the game to Japanese. Then you would have to go and change the language settings, which is not even really telling you how you do that. I'm not 100% sure how you even do that in Steam. It's either per game or globally through the Steam launcher. You would have to change the settings, and that still wouldn't be subtitled even if you did switch the settings in the language settings, come to think of it, because if I changed the spoken text to Japanese and left the Steam language settings to English, anytime there's a cutscene, that doesn't mean text is going to appear during the cutscene. And I know that for a fact because the main game doesn't have subtitles, but it does switch to Japanese when you change it to the English language. So they're definitely missing a trick there. They're missing a huge trick here, because clicking on gamepad bindings brings up Steam Big Picture mode for no reason. Not even the Steam overlay that you sometimes have to deal with. It brings up Big Picture mode for key bindings. And the key bindings on the gamepad, which I will be playing this with my Xbox One gamepad, are kind of awkward because they're using the D-pad to go up and down. So that's some weirdness. Certainly. Let's go back to the main menu now. So we're going to jump in fairly quickly. But I do want to say that this is the next game in a journey of games I've covered ever since my computer started showing some weirdness. And this really is going to be not animated in such a way that probably puts my PC through many paces. So I imagine I'm just going to mention it here in the first episode and never have to mention it again. Whereas if I was playing something with hyper-realistic ray tracing graphics, for instance, that would push my GPU a lot harder. The story, I don't want to spoil too much, other than to say that for the most part, this will be a Japanese Disney movie in the same way that something like Spirited Away is a kids' Disney movie made from Ghibli. There are some aspects, certainly, of what the Japanese think is acceptable for kids versus what the most conservative Westerner may think is acceptable for kids. And so there might be some violence or group bathing scenes here that it would be considered fairly normal, that would feel fairly odd. This is a fantasy game, so it'll be, for the most part, set in the fantasy world. The story will explain that further. And I'm going to definitely be comparing it to Ghibli animation style, but when you look at it, if you're coming from more of a Western perspective, it's going to feel a lot like Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I can't show this for full trailer because A, it would waste time, but also it'd probably get content ID'd. So here you can see the animation style to expect. Anthropomorphic animals. There's a lot of different sequences, certainly, that are shown here. What I think I just need to be careful with any JRPG, and I'm failing at it even now, is I've got to go fast. If I am going to potentially commit to playing several JRPGs or RPGs in a year, I can't sit back and relax. I've got to move fast. I very much would have preferred a remastered game for any kind of RPG to include options to double your XP, triple your XP. There could be a lot of grinding in any RPG between cutscene to cutscene. And that's what I don't want to run into. So, now that the game is giving me an option here, we could play the normal default setting. This, you can expect to enjoy some challenging battles, or I can just play easy. Battles will be easier, recommended for players who prefer to focus on the story. Difficulty setting can be changed at any time during gameplay, during the main menu settings options. If there's any achievements around this game, almost certainly there would be something so grindy and time consuming that you wouldn't get all those achievements anyways, so I don't have to worry about, oh, am I going to lock myself out of an achievement for beating the game on easy only. Easy, obviously, for me makes more sense. I'm here for the story and a easy, quick experience, relatively speaking. There's also no audio settings in this game for the main menu. I can't turn down the music and keep up the dialogue or sound effects.
Get a move on, Ollie boy!
Well, down, this cutscene does have subtitles.
But Ding Dong Dell's just down the way.
Huh?
Huh? Oh.
Huh?
So it looks like they're going to jump you right into some action.
What do we do?
Run for it! Ah! get going, shall we?
So you got a little mascot character with a lantern on his nose. You have a magic spell book. You have a magic wand.
So this is...
You're going to be playing as the boy.
That's right. A whole nother world.
He's dressed in
Beautiful, innit?
the real world clothing. This definitely is a child fantasy fulfillment experience where you're an average boy getting whisked to a fantasy world and eventually destined to become the king. Now, even when this game was made, I will say that Ghibli as an animator was particularly old, and so Studio Ghibli's staff working on it may mean that the actual Ghibli character, animator, may have had very little input, and I guess calling him an animator is probably the wrong descriptor. He'd be more director or producer at this point. It's very often the case in games that somebody gets their name out there, like this savant artiste, and really it's a whole collective effort of entire groups of people. Some people are just, for lack of a better term, maybe narcissistic enough that they promote themselves as being a creator more than they even promote their team. This is published by Bandai Namco instead of, say, Dragon Quest, which I think is more Square Enix. And this is very much a flat animation style of an old Ghibli movie. So this cutscene may be the level of input that Ghibli actually was involved with.
Good morning, Miss Layla. Why, good morning, Oliver. Your groceries are over there, honey. Thanks.
Ghibli movies have been coming out for so long
Did Philip find you? He said
that
he had something to show you, dear.
animators today probably grew up watching Ghibli movies.
Right now? He just stepped out with some deliveries for me. I doubt he'll have gotten far.
Thanks, Miss Layla.
Oh, say hi to your mother for me.
Miss Layla. Hey, Ollie.
So we've dropped from the flat animation now to the 3D cell shading animation.
Over here.
Somebody's calling us over. Oh, it's Phil. Now, the danger here... Okay. We are going to walk with the left stick, good. The danger certainly will run into just massive amounts of dialogue as much as grinding in RPG fighting gameplay mechanics, because RPGs often have a secondary gameplay mechanic of a lot of dialogue, like a visual novel, which can get really exhausting. So, yeah. There's an invisible wall calling me this way. And we can just talk to everybody. And you can see how a lot of this dialogue is not in any way voice acted. So, yeah. In an effort to speed things up, it probably will become the case that we'll try to avoid talking to characters that are unimportant. And this is in the real world, so we kind of get moved away from this real world, I think, fairly quickly. Notice how there's an animation here with a kind of orange smiley face, where it's more of a tan smiley face otherwise. And you have this top right map that is pointing you in that direction also. Yeah, my suspicion is this Motorville map we may visit this area a couple times, but we'll probably spend very little time here. And the maps will almost certainly be bigger and more zoomed out than this in the fantasy world.
Good thing you found me. Guess what? She's finally ready.
So what Miss Layla said? Is it really what I think it is?
So here's the problem I can see is we can skip, but we can't auto proceed forward. And if you've got voice acting, I would personally prefer to not have to hit the A button after every line of sentence of dialogue has been said.
What else would it be, dum-dum?
Of course, you do have a mixed experience here where some lines will be voice acted and some lines won't.
Boy, you are something else, Phil. So what do we do now?
I suppose it's also worth mentioning that since this is all being translated from Japanese, the translations and localizations can never be 100% accurate, and it's very easy to subjectively argue that translations are wrong. For instance, he just said, what else would it be? Dum-dum. There really is only one insult word that a kid would use in Japanese, and that's baka, B-A-K-A, which translates to idiot. How hurtful you are supposed to take being called an idiot heavily depends on how it is being said and pronounced in Japanese. Like, you could certainly say it in a jokingly fashion and take it as just oh, you're a goofball, or you can say it in a very mean fashion and take it as being as insulting version of calling someone an idiot as possible. Translate and localize that to idiot in English every single time it's said, and then you'll run into a problem where throughout the course of a lot of dialogue, you'll just have characters calling everybody idiot over and over again. Whereas in English, idiot probably isn't used as much as dum-dum, but even dumb probably doesn't need to be translated. This is where a localization effort might skew into censorship, but since you are trying to sell a game like this to kids, it might be better just to drop the dum-dum part anyways and just say, so they're actually trying to be somewhat loyal to the original dialogue, and I can appreciate that by putting in the dum-dum, where they could have certainly gone in more of a censorship while and just drop it. And certainly I've seen localizers do things that are just absolutely insane when translating from Japanese to English. Just full on not even reading the Japanese dialogue or the translations, just adding their own sentences completely changing things, adding political opinions that no Japanese person would even think about, let alone have inside of a game. And almost always when something like that happens, there is a fairly large backlash. Because again, the Western people in the West that are Japanophiles in any sense, that like Japanese RPGs or Japanese media, like it for being what it was. They don't like it for being a filtered, changed experience that's been translated to English or translated to sell to the vast majority of gamers. A JRPG like this is still not going to sell to the vast majority of gamers. You're not going to get the Halo bros or the Call of Duty fans to play Ni no Kuni. So it's kind of silly to pander to them, or even try to pander towards a general gaming audience in the West. Whereas in the East, in Japan, yeah, pretty much everybody's played at least one JRPG if they played any games. Almost certainly they've played a Final Fantasy game or a Dragon Quest game. Maybe not so much Ni no Kuni games, but they certainly have seen Ghibli movies.
What else? We take her for a spin. Tonight.
I'm gonna try not to go into bigger rants and explanations as we go through this dialogue also.
Tonight? But I can't. I mean, I need to ask my mom.
They're going to get on some kind of go-kart or motorcycle. Would be a little bit too much. Scooter, maybe?
Sure. You go ask your mom. And then when do we do it, huh? Tomorrow? Next year?
Now, I suppose it is also worth pointing out that this is not a Japanese town. And these are not Japanese people. Like, I wish I could move the camera around while in this, but if I change the language to Japanese, I don't think books and magazines in the background would be changed to Japanese writing. Motor Town definitely feels like it is a Middle European or type city, which a lot of the Ghibli environments in Ghibli movies have that feeling of just kind of European feel to them, the Japanese feel to them. If this was a Japanese town, these kids would both have black hair and very similar haircuts. They would be wearing their school uniforms. I could immediately identify their general age by the school uniforms that they are wearing. There would just not be roads quite like this, or cars quite like that. The presence of trucks is weird.
Well, no, but... Okay, we'll do it tonight. But we'll have to be real quiet.
Sure we will. Okay, tonight in my garage. Be there or be square.
Sure.
So that's probably our first quest, if we get that far.
So, this is the child who will save the world.
Or so says the crystal ball, Your Radiance.
The Dark Jinn's power alone will not suffice.
I fear not.
What is the child's name?
What's funny is you can't now press A to pause this.
Oliver.
So, Jinn is the Middle Eastern old-fashioned way of saying genie, although Westerners, when you think of genies, you think of like the Disney Aladdin movie, a big blue genie who's happy and friendly and will give you everything you ever wish, where Jinn are probably better translated as being magical, almost completely all-powerful demons that maybe grant wishes but trick you and give you something that you don't really want, or do something evil with your desires. So yeah, that we probably will have a few more creatures mentioned like that. The mini-map will be displayed at the top right of the screen as you travel. The map lets you see your immediate surroundings. Press right bump to switch to local map, showing an overview of the whole town. Stars let you see where you need to go next. Your first port of call is Oliver's house. So off to our house we go. This says do not enter. You can't walk that way. It might be the case that we come back. This is invisible wall too. So there's randomly spawning in people walking around. It's interesting you have this whole trail behind you that can't do anything with these trash cans. It shows you where you've been. Yeah, there's all kinds of cars here. Then they make generic like sound effects when you're just around them. So can we talk to the dog? So I'm preemptively walking around here just to see what this city looks like. It's very pretty and very detailed. I imagine I couldn't actively walk in front of a car and get hit. I imagine the car would just stop or move out of the way. And it doesn't look like there's anything else that's really going to be here too much. I'm just kind of thinking it might be a reward for talking to each of these people, but I'm not going to read out this dialogue, so you're going to have to actively just choose to pause the recording, pause the playback yourself if you really feel the need. Interesting, the camera does not fade out through the walls, so this is probably a random person. But it seems like everybody has something to say. I haven't found a single person that just you cannot talk to. Doesn't even feel like there's different lines of dialogue. Alright, so if I stand here, they will stop. Alright. And by stopping there, I think I may have broken its movement pattern. Either that or it's just straight up a red light now. Permanently. Yeah, there definitely is a danger here that doing something where you talk to everybody in the city might give you a early game item that would be particularly helpful, or might give you some XP, something more than just a generic achievement that doesn't really equate to any actual reward. Yeah. As for trying to figure out Oliver's age, I would kind of put him at like 10 years old. You know, Japanese cities are pretty safe and have a lot of small town mentality, so it wouldn't be crazy for a Japanese writer to say send a 10-year-old boy to a shop and get some groceries. Well, that would be out of the question in some other cities and other societies. So maybe she wants me to pick up the leaves and branches later, but seems like I have to go through this first.
Hey, Mom.
Notice that this is a 3D CGI animation. There's not a lot of texture here either. When you look at their hair, there's like one line, and that's it.
Did you say something, sweetie? You're kind of busy tomorrow, huh?
Well, now that you mention it, I do have to practice for my concert in the morning.
So this is probably a game that would look
You'll be in bed kind of early.
pretty good,
Yes,
even on a somewhat lower powered platform like a Nintendo Switch.
You will, huh?
Will you stop being so mysterious and eat your breakfast? You'll be late for school.
That's definitely not a Japanese breakfast. What's interesting here is we may have a kind of interesting beginning of a fable in which a fairly innocuous selfishness on Oliver's part to do something he knows that his mother wouldn't agree with is going to lead to her, or lead to him feeling like he is hurt her or betrayed her, and potentially even lead to the beginning of a much bigger journey to save her. School schmool tomorrow. Today's a special day, kiddo. Today's the day our dream machine finally rolls off the drawing board and into the streets of Motorville. Oh boy, I can't wait. When can I see it? Well there, cowboy, not so loud. Don't forget this is our secret. Hey, dum-dum. You didn't tell your mom about it, did you? No, I didn't. Did not. I asked her if she was busy and she said she had a concert practice, so she'll be in bed real early. Perfect. Then tonight's the night. You still in, kiddo? I sure am. Sure I am. Tonight at your garage, I'll be there. So it seems like they do go to school, but they're just going to skip all of that with a transition, which is fine. She must be asleep by now. ... Neato, she's out like light. Now's my chance. I have to go get to Phil's garage. Press Y to open the main menu. There you'll be presented with a range of options. And if you have Y on the face buttons for the main menu, then you're going to go to the menu quite a bit. And in RPG games, that is very believable. Use up, down, left, right on the D-pad to select an option. And press A. Having chosen an option, you'll return to the main menu by pressing B. Press it again to return to the game. That's a slightly confusing way to describe that. It would make more sense for there just to be a single image of the D-pad instead of showing up, down, left, right. Additional menu options will be available as you progress through the game. Open the main menu and press the pause button, start button to save your game. Once you've saved your game, you can select continue from the title screen to restart from the point where you left off. You can now use the main menu. Wow. So, settings wise, this is more Asian buttons where they're going to have A as the south face button and B as the east face button. So theoretically now I could turn up the sound effects and such. So we could turn off the mini map rotation, the guiding star. We could invert controls, turn off subtitles. We probably do want to change this. Let's just adjust the display speed to the max and see how that works. I see no reason not to turn on vibration also, even though that really doesn't change too much in the gameplay. It's very odd that it's just disabled by default. It seems like there are very specific things that will be in this game, and I don't know how it's got an in-game clock of 49 minutes unless this is midnight and 49 minutes is the current time and that there is just a system clock in the whole game. That might be the case. But yeah, it definitely feels like there will be very specific things. Oddly, you cannot go down to highlight the save, and we can see that Oliver in the lower left-hand corner is level 1, and there is at least enough room for 2 more characters. Yeah. 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi. Go ahead and select a new slot, save. Yeah, it is playtime of 15 minutes. Feels like it's been counting since the beginning of me launching the game, though, not since I pressed the new game button. Fairly slow walking speed down the stairs and in this environment, but Again, there's a possibility of there being something of interest. It may be something as small as just getting a extra food pack to refill your health by the time we actually get to the other world. You can definitely see why they showed that cutscene, so that you could know you're going to end up in a magical, fantastical world. Although it kind of feels like it should have been more of a fight in general, instead of just being nearly overrun by a bunch of animals. Something more actiony probably would be better. I really still kind of lean towards the idea that nothing in this area is something that we'll ever revisit. So, seems like they've done a lot of animation here just to be exhaustive, which is fine. This isn't the way to Phil's garage, so we have to go the way the game wants us to go. There's no way to jump a fence, so we'll have to walk the normal way. That's right. Talking to people, getting caught effectively. There's a blinking light. And so you had 2 or 3 3D CGI animations, and now we're back to the flat 2D animation.
What is it with that kid? What kept you, Slowpoke?
Sorry, my mom just wouldn't go to bed.
So, is it finished?
Sure is. The last bearing's in, and she's primed for action.
Bill definitely feels like he's a year or two older.
Right.
Although it probably says something poorly to like their level of maturity if you're hanging out with a younger kid that's a couple years younger than you.
The new Cube Deluxe ain't got nothing on us, Ollie.
What's funny is when he fell over, the controller vibrated.
So, you ready to hit the road, kiddo?
Seems kind of excessive considering Oliver didn't fall over. And kind of unsurprisingly, these animations are seemingly going to be very short and few. I imagine if you merged them all together, you might get a 2-hour movie of the flat 2D animations, but it wouldn't make any sense without all the 3D cutscenes and the gameplay in between. Okay, there's nobody around. Should we take her outside now? So, Phil, who gets to drive first? Huh? Let me see now. Tell you what, kiddo, if you run down the street and make sure the coast is clear, I'll let you go first. You mean that? Oh boy, okay. Wait right here and watch for Starry Mary. Watch out for Starry Mary, will you? Starry Mary? You know, the girl who's spying on us before. I swear that kid is cracked. See, there she is again. I'll bet that telltale goes straight to tell her olds. Olds? That's probably not the right word to use. She wouldn't do that. What, are you sweet on her or something? Go check out front already. Sure thing, Phil. I'll be right back. Of course, Phil's gonna almost certainly take the first ride. Because Phil does not seem like a good kid. There might be a few more times that you come back to this city because they're spending some effort to they're spending an effort
Please, Oliver, don't go.
to introduce a lot of characters from this city.
Who are you? How do you know my name?
Ollie! What's taking you so long?
I'm sorry, Phil. Someone saw me.
Oh, man. Who was it?
Oh, that girl over. Huh?
What are you talking about? Huh? There's nobody there.
Huh. That's weird. She was right there. A girl.
A girl, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I bet it was that dumb, scary Mary. Oh, no. Couldn't be. She's not allowed out. You must be going screwy or something. Anyway, come on.
Oh, okay.
Oliver,
It is a very weird
boy
twist
who will
here
save the world.
of
But
having
unfortunately for him, his light is yet a mere
voiced
candle in darkness.
cutscenes versus unvoiced
He may be
cutscenes.
the child the prophecies speak of, but he is a child nonetheless.
Yet these humans can be disturbingly powerful. Did the other's darkness not engulf the land entirely? Might this one not prove equally tenacious?
What would you have me do, Your Radiance?
Such saplings must not be suffered to grow.
Very well, Your Radiance.
So he can use
He who would
magic
save this doomed
to
world
affect things on the other in the
must
other world.
die.
Mom! Help me!
It definitely feels like all of these cutscenes should be voiced for this first part until you get to the other world. Then you could have had a very clean break of not having voice lined acting once you get to the other world.
Where are
And you would have then at least haven't had a full hour of getting people committed to playing the game. This is one of the problems I think of even like the original Pokemon games, though, is that
Oliver?
there's just a ton of reading that I'm not sure if modern kids are all completely willing to play games with that much dialogue without voice acting.
You're kind of busy tomorrow, huh?
Well, now that you mention it, I do have to practice for my concert in the morning.
Oh, yeah? So, you'll be in bed kind of early, huh?
Oliver. Oliver.
So her going out to seek him may cause her to get sick or hurt. Now we're back to the flat animation. These kids are way too young to be driving a go-kart thing.
Would you listen to her purr?
Maybe if they were being observed and if they'd
Okay?
guaranteed to benefit this. I'm actually a little surprised Phil let him go first, but I suppose you could also say Phil's using him as a guinea pig.
We have liftoff! Whoa!
Like, with proper parental supervision, something like this could be safe. Of course, you can't account for magic from another world causing a wheel to fall off. It is often the case in stories like this, particularly Ghibli stories, where something like a near drowning happens, and that can be the split point where, if you want to take it that way, Oliver may actually drown right now and be just hallucinating the rest of the game. Of course, it's not particularly fun to assume that's what's really happening, and it's much more fun to just assume what's being shown to you is the truth.
Oliver? Oliver, wake up!
But that's a pretty big tradition
Oh, sweetie, I'm so
in kids' stories. It's all a dream, or it's all hallucination.
I swear, if I'd known, I never would have.
Don't be silly, Phil. What about your car?
That hunk of junk, I can make another one in no time.
Well, I think you two have had quite enough excitement for one day.
Yes, ma'am. Ja!
Are you okay, Phil?
Must have twisted my ankle back there.
Whatever will you children get up to next?
Allie,
Allie?
are you okay?
Mom? What's wrong?
Oh my.
Mom?
She always did have a weak heart.
Mom?
Oh, dear.
So he's given her a heart attack, swimming in a cold lake to rescue him.
Oliver, sweetie. Oh, sweetie.
Yep.
Mom?
You'll be okay.
I would have
I know you will.
probably preferred
Be good now.
just maybe one intro cutscene by Ghibli that was flat 2D. Then stick with the 3D voice acted cutscenes like this for the entire intro. Get rid of walking around Motor Town and establishing that you can use the menu, because that's stuff you could have just had the player do later. Now, we haven't really had enough characterization of the mother or Oliver to relate to this too much, but since this is a kid's game, that's probably fine. Of course, this is a kid's game. To see
Thanks to her, the boy
a mother nearly dying or dying.
But shorn of his mother's love, to whom can he now turn for guidance? And soon he will come to our world, where our powers are strongest.
very good, Your Radiance.
Let us see how this story unfolds. I'm sure the ending will be engaging.
It would have been 50 minutes of just cutscenes if they hadn't put the gameplay in this,
Oliver, honey,
but
I brought you
they
some
haven't done much gameplay at all.
for you, okay, dearie?
You can see he has a doll here that looks very much like the character with the lantern on his nose. Your neighbors taking care of him. There's a cat. GB likes cats.
You just have to wait until dinner, Timmy told him. Oh, it's so sad. He's been in there 3 whole days now.
I'm not sure if this is even his house or if they had him stay somewhere else. Looks like his house.
Mummy starts her new job today, but she's asked someone very special to take care of you. Mummy spent a long time making him. I'm sure he'll look after you very well. Be good while Mummy's away, okay?
It's kind of funny, he's younger here, but he's still kind of wearing the same outfit. And so is she.
Wrong, sweetie?
But that's probably a good thing. It makes it easier to recognize characters,
Okay? Of course, sweetie.
even when their appearance changes.
Always. Always.
Mommy, come back. Please.
I think there probably is an argument, though, to say maybe Ghibli animation and Ghibli movies should stay as Ghibli animation and Ghibli movies. And not try to be a part of a bigger thing like a
What just happened?
video game, unless you're
You
going to
just
fully
witnessed the
commit to
rebirth
that.
of Drippy, Lord of the Fairies.
Who?
What, are you deaf or something? Drippy, Lord of the Fairies, I said, didn't I?
Drippy.
That's right, and I'm sick to the teeth of you a snivelling and moaning. A proper crybaby bunting you are. 3 days, man. I've been sad before.
Funny
but
they
crying
made
for
this
3
guy
whole days.
Scottish.
I'm surprised there's a drop of water left in you. You're a big boy, man. 3 days is, well, it's unheard
Or
of.
Welsh.
What?
God, yeah. a bit flummoxed, a wee bit lost for words. Not to worry, man. I got all the answers.
It's interesting how you have a pre-rendered cake looking very different to the character. Yeah, the background image here definitely looks very different than the characters do.
On with the show!
Okay.
See, it's like this, see? What it is there's more worlds out there than this one by here. There's what you might call parallel worlds, see? They're like worlds along by the side of your one. And one of those worlds is my world. That's right, the whole
I have to explain this whole thing because, again, this is supposed to be a kid's game.
And I, that is the Lord High Lord of the Fairies, the reason I'm by here in this world of yours, well, it's because there's a proper bad apple trying to upset the peace of both our worlds, see? Shada, the Dark Djinn, his name is, and what he did was he took over people's hearts and spread war and ruin all over our world. Tried to stand up to him, I did, and he turned me into a flippin' doll and kicked me out of our world and into yours, the rotter. And then you went and cried all over me. And
if that's true, then the mother is a liar, because the mother said she worked real hard to make that doll.
Just goes to show you can't judge a book by its cover, eh? So, anyway, that means I better get you over to our world and have you get rid of Shada for us. All right with you?
Me? But how can I...
Don't fret, man. It's a big responsibility, I know, but you'll be all right, especially with me to help you.
But I...
Oh, want me to ask properly, do you? Fair dues.
What?
Oh, pure-hearted one, will you please come and save our world?
It's not even gonna ask you to say yes.
Sorry, I must have misheard you. What did you say? Go on once more, but louder.
I won't do it. I mean, I can't do it.
This is why they say never work with children. I ask nicely, and you give me a hearty, yes, sir. That's how this works, see? Gee whiz, that would be swell, you say. It's just how these things are done. It's tradition. How am I supposed to work with this? It's like he's never read a story in his life.
But I don't know anything about your world. And I just can't right now.
What, because your mom dropped dead?
Yeah.
You got a photo of her? Hurry up, will you? I haven't got all day.
Okay.
So she's actually dead. How many kids have photos of their parents in their bedroom?
Let's see now. Blimey. It can't be. But then it can't be a coincidence, neither.
What is it?
The great sage Alicia. Then we might just be able to save your mum.
Huh? What are you talking about?
You ready for another earful?
Yeah.
The souls of people in your world and my world are connected, which means people from over by here have another version of themselves over by there, called a soulmate, see? And people with soulmates can even look like each other. Now, your mum, well, she shared a soul with the great sage Alicia. A proper talent she was.
Huh? So my mom was a sage? But how does that help us save her?
Well, Alicia tried to take on the Dark Djinn, but his power was too much for her, and he trapped her in this dark jewel called the Soul Snare. When that happened, then the link between hers and your mum's souls would have been cut off. But if you could free Alicia, it just might fix the link, and who knows, it might even bring your mum back.
Who knows?
Is that really true?
I can't be sure now, but it's possible, yeah.
He's just lying to him, almost certainly.
Wait. How do you know all this, Mr. Drippy? You've been a doll this whole time.
Ah, now there's clever of you. Good question, lad. It's like this, see? I'm not the only fairy. Even though I was stuck by here, my buddies were keeping me abreast of all the goings-on over there. How? I suppose it's what you might call telepathy. And that's not all. I was sending my lordly orders back over there, too. Having them spy on Shada and that, you know, tidy, huh? What is it?
I'll do it. I'll come to your world. I'll come with you and save my mom.
See, once again, this is a divergent point where you could have a boring interpretation here where he is just falling into a depressive psychosis and hallucinating all of this.
Oh, curious, are we? All right, I'll tell you. First thing we need is a drop of magic. Go and have a dig around in the fireplace. There's something hidden there so nosy Parkers won't find it.
But why would anybody hide something in there?
That's for me to know and you to find out. Look lively.
Yeah, it still would be fairly rough, but it would kind of made more sense for there to have been a shorter experience to get to this point, and then this would have been the first point in which you walked around and um and actually used the menu and got your introduction stuff, because there really wasn't a lot of extra value in starting by picking up groceries and delivering them and then having conversations with Philip and then sneaking out and doing all that. That could have all been a 15-minute cutscene. And some of it could have probably been a flashback too. Looks like our character can run now. We couldn't come into this room before, so we'll check. Our character's squeaking every time he walks, and that might get very annoying very quickly. He's also rattling when he walks. Just go ahead and just look everywhere, just to see if anything's changed. But yeah, you could have just animated this one building, and everything else could have been a cutscene to the fantasy world. Yeah, if you had gone more of the flashback,
A book? But it would burn in there.
we didn't have to really work up to the mother dying. We could have just referenced and flashbacked the mother dying, and that would have been more appealing, certainly, to Western kids, certainly, is to say the mother died instead of show the mother died.
The wizard's companion.
I suppose it's worth also pointing out that if you are a particularly conservative parent that don't want your kids to be interested or even know anything about fictional magic like Harry Potter and such, this is not going to be the game for you. So I started this off by saying, yeah, there's going to be some different sentimentalities from a Japanese storyteller versus a Western storyteller, with a mother dying and you being given a wizard's companion in magic. Now listen up, I'm going to teach you what's what in that wizard's companion of yours. If you want to read it, press Y to open the main menu. You should see down at the bottom right there. You just need to choose with the A button, and you can leaf through the wizard's companion to your heart's content. The way he's spelling your, Y-O-U-E-R, I don't think anybody spells it that way. Take a minute or two to have a skim of a few pages, eh? You look like a smart lad. I'm sure you'll get into it. Oh, I almost forgot. The first thing you have to do when you get your hands on the wizard's companion is make a pledge. This is feeling somewhat Pokemon-esque too, where you're getting your Pokedex and you're getting your first mascot character. You need to vow that you'll do all you can to be worthy of being a wizard. Don't look so flipping worried. It's not hard. All you have to do is write your name in the book with an open, honest heart. And don't even have to write Oliver if you don't want. You can write Bunting, Crybaby, or whatever you like. The important thing is that you mean it. Go and scribble your name down. So they're effectively telling you to put your name in the book, and that does potentially mean they may start calling you something different. And in this case, I feel like Oliver is interesting. They call lowercase Latin case because they're also Latin words. I feel like Oliver is too much of a character for you to really change his name like that. Otherwise, I would consider putting like Rydo in the book. They are giving you a lot of options here, which, in all fairness, I guess most games, depending on what languages they support, probably have all of these options, but they usually lock them out in such a way that you couldn't choose them or scroll through them. Are you happy with the name Oliver? Yeah. I think this is too much of a cinematic story to change his name. You've now taken the wizard's pledge and now privy to the timeless wisdom of the wizard's companion.
Tidy. Right. Magic in our way over to my world, is it? Now
They don't show him actually write his name, which is fine.
You got a wand somewhere by here? We can't go casting spells without a wand now, can we?
A wand? Why would we have a wand?
Oh, that's a pain. Ah, well, can't be helped. We'll just have to look for one outside.
Huh? We won't find one out there either.
Don't nitpick, crybaby Bunting.
Bunting? My name is Oliver. Oliver.
Ah, so the crybaby bit was right, at least, was it?
So, seems like he's gonna insult him every now and then. And I assume he would have said Oliver still, even if you had changed his name in the book, but maybe not. That was voice acted as a line, though, so it probably would have always said Oliver. See, this one's going to be a little more difficult, but our journey over to my world is a hunt for the soul snare, among other things, so why don't you treat this as a warm-up, the Easter egg hunt, before the wild goose chase, if you will. Okay, I guess. Okay, I'm lying. The thing is, I've never brought a wand with me. I mean, look at me. The price of my lovability is a small stature. Ain't it? I only just managed to carry that flipping book, mun, anymore, and I'd been crushed. So, oddly, this is saying the mother is a liar, saying that she sewed the dolls, unless he put a spell on her to brainwash her into thinking she sewed the doll when he came over with the spell book and got turned into a doll. So, I mean, fairies tell lies, huh? Of course they do. Us fairies are incorrigible liars. Anyway, no point crying over spilt milk. Let's find ourselves a substitute, shall we? Yeah. It is also, I think, worth pointing out that despite the Disneyification of fairies, almost every traditional story of a fairy has them as kind of evil, malevolent tricksters. Not people you really would want to deal with or do business with. Substitute. How can there be a substitute for a magic wand? Well, if you can find something brown and sticky, like maybe a stick, we might be able just to muddle through. Interesting. They're not even giving you a hint here. They're telling you straight up, find a stick. Oh, okay. You sure a stick will work? Do you think I'll send you up the garden path or something? Fine. I'll give you a hand. Follow me, bunting. Might be helpful if they explain what a bunting is. I think it's more just an old English way of saying baby. But crybaby baby would be kind of silly. So she swept up all the leaves and branches. There isn't so much as a twig left. It's spotless. Yes, ma'am. Thank you for doing that. There's no need to thank me, dear. It's my pleasure. So, they had hoped that I could have gotten the stick from there, but it's going to be more difficult. But what are you looking at? Don't tell me you're thinking of using this lamppost as a flipping wand. Well, you can cut that out for a start. It's way too flipping big. You need a stick or something. Ain't it? Something like that, ain't it? Why don't we go and have a look around over there. So we're just going to follow the guy. This definitely feels like more gameplay, that it makes a lot more sense to have started here. That's one proper tidy motor, eh? Might get myself one of these. I'm sorry. Now's really not the time, is it? There ain't anything one like over here either. Let's go and look over at the other side, shall we? Okay. Oh, when you find something, don't forget to pop it in your bag for safekeeping. Look up at the top left of the main menu and you'll see your bottomless bag. In there you'll find all your items nicely sorted into different categories. That's handy. Plus left bump or right bump to shift between categories. Of course, there ain't much to see at the moment, but when you got loads of stuff, you'll be glad of a bit of order, ain't it? Anyway, next time you pocket a tiny item, be sure to have a closer look at your bottomless bag. Put it in my bag? Sure. Bottomless bag is now accessible in the main menu. Yeah, we are going to be going to this main menu quite a bit. And we can see this is where a RPG game, and particularly Japanese RPG games, start to get crazy. If there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times 4, 28 slots for provisions, more than 28 slots for weapons, perhaps an almost endless amount of weapons. Now, I would suspect this probably is about 75, slightly, maybe 100 slots for weapons. So it's not going to be a super crazy RPG. There definitely are games like Borderlands, which is a more Western gun-based RPG game, where there is just a algorithm that is constantly giving you slightly randomly generated weapons, and you can try and collect them all, but you don't really have space in Borderlands to do that. Here, I suspect if we tried to collect every single weapon in the game, they would all fit in this inventory, although that would probably be fairly crazy to do. Seems like there's maybe slightly less room for armor, which kind of makes sense. Definitely less room for accessories. And we'll have to put different armor and weapons and accessories on different characters at some point when we get different characters. Treats. I don't know what the difference between a treat and a provision is. I suspect treats may be for more of a Pokemon style characters that you might have fight on your behalf. Ingredients, I imagine you have to combine to make treats or provisions. Maybe even to make weapon and armor. And then important items. You can see that there's quite a bit of room here for that. Let's see. We have Oliver's clothes, which will probably change out of that fairly quickly. A Mite ticket, a Drongo ticket, a Flutterby ticket, a Griffey ticket, a Draggle ticket, a Hurley ticket, a Fairy suit, which we can't use at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if each of these things are because of the remastered element, and they've just given you some tickets to potentially spawn creatures. Creatures might be kind of procedurally generated. Oddly, you can't read the book from the bottomless bag, so it's kind of weird that it's being mentioned in two places. And let's see. It definitely feels like there's a lot here that's going to have to be revealed. A symbol. It's kind of oddly done in such a way that you could either use the left stick or to scroll and the right stick to zoom. Yeah. So it is a kind of interesting system where you're going to zoom in. There may just be a lot here. We may have to get materials to craft specific swords. And we may have to see things or get information about weapons to create them. Yep. RPG games, particularly Japanese RPG games, can certainly become fairly overwhelming too. And the fact that there's this much of a guide, which at some level, this almost would be the type of guide you'd get in a real world or a limited edition version of this game. Would come with like a real world printed version of the book, or a cheaper version of the book as a guidebook. There's going to be, I guess, some extra little artwork here and there. It does seem like the bestiary here seems to be fairly simplistic. There's a few things that are hidden, but most of it seems to already be revealed. So that might mean that there's not that much in the game as far as the variety of enemies. We can also see here that when we do get to the fantasy world, it's not going to be that big of an open world. That'll save us some time. Like, in total, there is fairly a significant amount that's just already unlocked. Is the Wizard's Pledge, signed with Oliver. A wizard shall never lie, nor bear falsehood of any kind. A wizard shall not take up his left shoe before his right be on. And a wizard shall never venture out of doors when the tempest doth rage. Which that would mean never go outdoors when it rains. It's also a whole alphabet translation here, which I suppose that means you could, with that script, potentially like immediately start to translate what that says. The rest of this is already in English, so they would have had to have done extra work, certainly, to make this look good in every language this game was sold in. So, yeah. It's not really like it's going to be a lazy effort. JRPGs maybe focus their efforts on things that you're not used to seeing, as far as the amount of fighting and grinding. See, but I don't know if I really need to talk to everybody. Probably don't. Yeah, I'm gonna have to give up on the idea of talking to everybody very quickly. But yeah, there's definitely a lot more polish here. Sight's no use. There's nothing around here that looks like a wand. You're not wrong, Bunting. Alright, we better split up then. Broaden our searchlight. I'll go and take another quick look around your house. You stay here and head up the outside search. Okay. Okay, brown stick, brown and sticky. Brown and sticky. Oliver? Huh? Oh, it's you. Who's that girl? Try talking to her. I guess we have no real choice.
You're the little girl I met before, huh?
Mm-hmm. We met before.
So, how do you know who I am?
I'm really, really sorry, Oliver.
Huh?
Your mummy. I'm sorry. I couldn't save her.
Huh? I don't... Why would you be sorry for that?
I wanted to save her.
I really did.
So she could be a pixie. She could be the Sage of Soul.
Where are you going? Hey, where did you go?
Ollie boy, why are you talking to thin air?
Mr. Drippy.
Even
she
he
disappeared
can't see
again.
her, apparently.
Huh? Who did?
That strange girl. That's the second time she tried to talk to me.
What's that? A girl? Where? You're right about strange. I can't see her any flipping where.
Well, how could you? She disappeared into thin air.
Well, anyway, there's something I want to ask you.
There is? Sure. Go ahead.
Do you mind it? You know, having a sidekick like?
Huh? A sidekick? Who do you mean?
Crikey, that's cold. Who do you mean, he says? Why not stab me in the heart while you're at it? I mean me! I wanted to know if it was alright me joining you on your adventures. Or if you were maybe wanting to trade me in for a younger, prettier model. But it looks like I got my answer, huh? Well, so you know, if you don't have faith in people, you'll never see their true worth. And what's more...
Look at this.
Huh?
It was on the ground, right where that girl was standing.
Chuck it here, then. Top. Well, I'll be a monkey's uncle. It's a wand!
You mean it? A real wand?
Come over by here and take a look, man. It might seem like any old stick, but it's got all magic writing on it.
I've not gone
It does, huh?
detailed into too many fantasy stories, but
The runes are all faded, so it might have lost a bit of
it would be
power.
kind of nice to
But
have
for
some
our current
backstory
purposes,
as
it's
to
beauty.
how wands work.
Wow. What a stroke of luck.
Are they just
Lucky
connected to
that you know,
nature,
Ollie boy.
and that's why they're
Never thought we'd
magical,
actually
or
find one.
are they made from magical trees?
Maybe that girl brought it here for me?
So we have obtained an old stick.
Right, now we need a place to cast our spell.
You could definitely have...
Wait, you need somewhere
cut-
proper massive.
They could have cut a lot of content here and
You
sped
need
up
space
to
give it oomph,
actual
see?
gameplay. And this is certainly the danger of JRPGs, is that
You really need
we
that.
may have 90% cutscenes and 10% gameplay,
Yeah, what kind of question is that?
which
Magic is special.
might be
It's
okay,
secret,
but
right?
it depends on whether I have to hit A the whole time or whether it's just
You have to cast
huge
spells in the
walls
best
of
environment
text.
possible. You really are new to this, aren't you? This is beginner stuff we're talking about.
I
here.
also wonder if maybe easy mode is straight up eliminating fights that we would have had normally.
Now, take me somewhere with plenty of space. There's got to be somewhere around by here.
The town square, I guess.
Yeah, there's a lot of walking here. And while I imagine this is really just going to be a drop in the bucket as far as the amount of walking that happens normally, I imagine the game is going to just stop me from going too far in this direction. I can't get Starry Mary, or we don't even know if her name is Mary. That would be bad if playing on easy mode just straight up got rid of the fights. They should at least show them if any fights were happening. I suspect no fights actually are happening, though. The map hasn't changed, and yet we are going to a new area.
Do you really think we should be doing this here?
No worries, man. Normal people can't see magic, see? Go on, Ollie boy. Cast gateway.
So does that mean they can't see you as Oliver? Okay, gateway is the Omega symbol with a line through it. It costs 0 magic power, opens the doorway to transport the caster between the worlds. Since it is an everyday spell, it does make me wonder if we are going to end up casting gateway in specific spots and transporting ourselves between the two worlds very often. Usually, this would be more like an isekai, which is Japanese for another world story, where Oliver gets sent to the other world and does not have the capability of returning until the whole story is nearly complete. But this may very well be a case where we just, at your free will, are capable of jumping between the two worlds very often. We'll want to keep an eye out and see what level of animation Casting Gateway looks like the second time. This is going to be unique for this time. I could even see this game have been developed to be a Wii game as an original concept, and you would have had to waggle the Wiimote or the Joy-Cons on the Switch to draw and cast the spells. Of course, playing this with a controller on Steam, there's no reason for it to support that, and I imagine it didn't support that when it came out. This is really one of those kinds of games and one of those kinds of projects that could have been secretly in work for 10 years. The flat 2D animation would have looked the same 10 years ago as it does now, and the 3D animation would have only looked better if it had been remastered again this year. Now, arguably though, with the level of animation this game has, remastering it doesn't really change that much. So what was a flash forward, we finally get back to this point. I guess technically everything after this scene was a flashback.
So this is your world.
Home at last! But there's a tidy way to go yet.
Hey, Mr. Drippy, that was pretty neat just now, huh?
Oh, that herd of elk! Enjoy your first encounter with the majestic wildlife of our mysterious world, did you?
Uh-huh. Huh? Jeepers.
Oh, Nickers! Where did he spring from?
What do we do?
He's not like the big softies just now. He's itching for a fight. Proper savage.
Let's run away!
No, use that stick you got by there. Give him a whacking and send him packing. Look lively, he's making
screaming. So an hour and 30 minutes into it, and now we finally have a transition to the proper gameplay mechanic of this game. Let's see, we have one of two actions we can do with Y button. So we can attack, defend, provisions, or run away, or we can just hit A to attack. Don't fret, Ollie boy, let your old pal Drippy talk you through the basics of battle. First off, take a look at the green gauge by there. That shows you your health points, HP. They're really going to explain everything here, which is fine for a kid's game. The more HP you have, the healthier you are. But if you run out, you go unconscious. The blue gauge underneath that, that's your magic points, ain't it? Don't worry about magic for now, man. Let's talk about beasties first, shall we? You can see lots of information about them up there on the right. Although, I don't know if right bump would zoom that in and tell you anything more. That there's useful A. Red gauge shows their HP. Get it down to nothing, you've won. And these speech bubble thingies down here are the commands you can use in battle. Well, that's enough to be going on with. Try giving the rudder a smack with your stick. Just use left trigger or right trigger to select attack, then confirm your choice with A, and Bob's your uncle. Rydo, get cracking with the whacking. So left trigger and right trigger cycles between all of this. This is the kind of thing that ideally you would want to see in an abridged format for JRPGs, where you could somewhat automate this and script it. And I'm sure there probably are some ways to do that, but it would probably not be worth investigating how to do that. So on easy mode, I'm hoping that when we get into fights like this, we'll do more damage and the fights will not be as slow as they can be. I don't want to get into a single fight with a character and spend 20 minutes doing a fight with one sub-boss or main boss character. I also don't want to spend 1 minute doing 20 fights of the exact same characters in a row. We know we're at level 1, but I ideally don't want to have to try and grind up to level 100 unless it's absolutely necessary, and hopefully that will go by fairly quickly. One thing about Pokemon as an RPG game is that it actually really fails miserably to make anything more of an abridged experience for kids. To get the gotta catch 'em all mentality and try and collect all the Pokemon in the Pokemon game does pretty much require you to spend hundreds of hours in a game, on top of also having to trade Pokemon with somebody who has the companion games in almost every version of Pokemon. If you get Pokemon Red, you have to trade with people who have Pokemon Blue or Pokemon Green, whatever. Tidy, or should I say nice. That's what they say when you find an enemy's weak spot or block a big attack, see? Oh, and look at that. It dropped something. You best pick it up, eh? So we just straight up are controlling our motions. Oh, that's what's known as a glim, Molly boy. Enemies drop them in heat of battle. Green glims, like the one you just grabbed, restore a few of your own HP. So this makes this more of a fairly active action RPG compared to a turn-based RPG where you wouldn't be able to walk around during the battles. That being said, action RPGs still aren't that action-y in most cases, particularly action JRPGs. Blue ones give you your magic points back instead, same color as the gauge, see, tiny. Oh, you can also give your HP and MP a boost with spells and items, ain't it? Of course, you'll have to take my word for that, what with you not having any at the moment. Okie dokie. That's enough for me. It's time for you to practice what I preach. Go on, boy Bosch. Boy Bach. Give him what for? Right. There's a timer limitation. It seems like 2 with attacks. So you aren't just going to be able to smash the attack button over and over again. Take note also that we got 4 XP, and that was half enough to get us halfway to level 2. So, and we earned only 3 gold there. So the currencies, as far as XP and money, are going to be at a very low scale, which is very kid-friendly. Very often you see in games the minimal amount of XP you get is 100, or the minimal amount of gold you get is 100, and then it's just to get a bigger number and give off the perception of bigger numbers. Ideally, I'd like to see all games keep their currencies, whether you're talking real in-game currencies like money or gold, or just experience as a type of currency that you can spend on skill ups and level ups. I'd like to see them all kept nice and small and tidy.
Well, hey, proper tidy. Nice one, Ollie boy.
Creepers, creepers.
Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, our world is absolutely riddled with beasties. But keep that up and you'll have nothing to worry about. Right, let's get a move on, shall we?
Sure, Mr. Drippy, but where are we going?
Well, first off, we need to get you a wand.
But I already have a wand.
You're having a laugh, aren't you? That thing's about as magical as a flipping cabbage. You might just squeeze a gateway spell out of it, but you can forget about anything more than that. Honestly, I wish you'd think before you open your mouth.
Oh, sorry.
Now, I told you Ding
Drippy
Dong was just over by yonder,
is a
didn't I?
bully as much as Phil was a bully.
We might find a wand with a bit more oomph down by there.
So, are wands really so hard to find here?
Well, time was you couldn't move for the flipping things. But since Shadar showed up, magic's taken a real nosedive. He banned people from using it, see? Cursed anyone who tried to. He scared them all so much they gave it up.
So, he's pretty scary, huh?
Well, he turned me into a flippin' doll, didn't he? Just saying his name's enough to make most folks brick it. Still, I'd rather be a doll than have him go poking round in my heart. No one wants to be broken-hearted.
Broken-hearted? Like, sad?
Worse than that, much worse. It's when he steals a piece of a person's heart. Poor beggars don't know whether they're alive or dead. That's no way to live, man.
We'll have
So
to
that's
find
why
a
they're all
point
so
to
scary,
end this
huh?
recording.
We can't let him go on doing this.
It's been
Well, it's
an
not
hour and a half.
him, is it? It's not like people flipping enjoy it. That's why I brought you here, innit? You might just be able to stop him, see?
You really think I can?
Of course you can. You are the
Here you
pure-hearted one. And the legends say
doing
that the pure-hearted one will drop
two
away the
motivations.
darkness.
One to save your mother, one to
Spells and you'll be ready to face
save
him in no
the
time. Sound good
magic
to you?
land and be a hero.
Okay, I'll do it. I'll learn magic.
Of course you will. And that's why we need to find you a better wand.
All right. Let's head for Ding Dong Dell.
Tidy.
So we just now got an achievement. First achievement for the game. Ain't it beautiful, Ollie boy? It's good to be back. Our world is absolutely riddled with monsters. If one of them spots you, you'll see an exclamation pop over its head and it'll charge. When it gets within touching distance, you'll have a fight on your hands. If you run out of HP in the middle of the battle, you'll be out for the count, so be careful. Oh, and here's a tidy little technique for you. If you sneak up behind monsters without them noticing, you can get the first hit in, giving you the upper hand. The only thing is, it works the other ways around, so if a monster sneaks up on you, they'll be able to get the first hit in, the riders. Oh yeah, here's a little something. Considered a gift from the Lord High Lord of the Fairies. You obtain 3 loaves of white bread. Thanks, but what do I do with these? Just have a munch on them when you feel a bit ropey, and you'll be right as rain in no time. Come on. See, this is really weird to have so much of your instructions being told to you in such a colloquial dialect and way of speaking. Like, up until this point, most of this game has felt very kid-friendly if this was going to be the first JRPG or RPG you have a kid play. Although they still would have to be fairly old because they'd have to be willing to do this much reading. Unless, as a parent, you were going to read everything out to them as you're playing, which I suppose that might work. Although that's a big commitment of everything you're going to have to read. But to get your instructions using, like, colloquialisms, it's like phrases like right as rain are easily things kids wouldn't have heard of. And this game definitely does not feel like it would work if it is actually just trying to target adults. It will have its adult fan base, certainly, but I don't think you go for this kind of story unless you're trying to get younger kids. But a wizard cannot live by bread alone, Ollie boy. He needs a proper wand and all. And that knobby thing in your hands is doing my flipping head in. See that big castle to the north? Is that supposed to be northeast? That's Ding Dong Dell, that is. I reckon we'll find ourselves a wand by there. So let's get moving, shall we? Okay. So, we are now in a bigger open world section that seems like there's a path in the lower right, seems like there's something in the lower left, seems like there's something center north, and our directions are sending us to the first city. You can pan, but you can't zoom out, it seems, to go any further. The game thinks we've been playing for an hour and 15 minutes. That's not incredibly wrong. Probably going to be a little silly to make a ton of save spots here. I am not believing really that we're going to make major mistakes and have to jump back an hour and 50 minutes in gameplay. That would be a big loss, certainly, if that happened. It's kind of odd also that the save spots are numbered 00 for new slot always, and then the most recent one is 01, so the numbers just get lower as things happen. There was, I guess we could pause the game here also. There was a more abridged game that I played. There was an RPG where you were just on the main screen like this and you don't jump into a fighting game screen. So it was a cat RPG game, and with almost every fight you fought, you leveled up, and so in roughly 7-8 hours you could beat the whole game, and if you really tried to speedrun it, you probably could have beaten the whole game in less than a couple hours. And it was a fine RPG game, but it kind of took too much out and still didn't really speed up the process. My hope is that when we get to the overworld sections like this, we can just run to the city and get to the next cutscene and just keep on playing. What will be major difficulty spikes in any game like this will be if we get put in a situation where we have to fight a boss. I suspect there's going to be at least 12 sub-bosses that we have to fight, and we find that we're just not leveled up enough to actually defeat those bosses, and then we have to come back to an overworld like this and grind. But my goal so far would be to avoid any conflicts, get to Ding Dong Dell, get that magic wand, and then move the story forward. Ideally, I think every episode will be about this long, an hour and 30 minutes, hour 40 minutes, because I know this series is going to go a little bit longer, which is still really, really long for an episode on YouTube. And yeah, so far so good. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any more flat 2D animations, or very rarely see flat 2D animations. I wouldn't be surprised if we get into a situation where there's a ton of gameplay and a ton of talking to people who don't have voiced lines of dialogue to get side missions and quests, and then it would be potentially 3-4 hours before we see or hear any more voice acting. That would be a bit of a disappointment, but the game is already being very weird about jumping between voice lines of dialogue and non-voice lines of dialogue. And that's not atypical for JRPGs. It's something you just kind of have to live with. I would like to see JRPGs and RPGs in general become more popular so that they would have more of an audience, so that they would get more funding, assuming all of those things are interconnected. But yeah, a 100% voice acted JRPG would be appreciated, certainly. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want to friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.